Hello and welcome to the third session of the teacher training for hosting Zoom for the Congregation Colony Religious School staff. In this third session, we're going to cover what you've probably been waiting for, what you'll use primarily, which are the controls while you're actually hosting the meeting. I'm going to go over the controls that you can use anytime first, ones that I suggest you actually review and have set up prior to any other participants joining the meeting. And then I'll force my kids to help us out and join in as a couple of participants so that I can show you the general participant controls and what you can do with them once they're part of the meeting. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so you can see now here's our main Zoom window, and we're going to talk about a lot of the controls that are available. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see two icons. This first one is telling you that you're using enhanced encryption. You can click on it, it'll take you to some advanced settings. I don't suggest that you change any of those. You should leave them as they are defaulted. And so I'm not going to click on this button. This one, however, is another set of useful information that you can use. And it's related to the fact that you can get, just like you do when you set it up, and can automatically copy the link to the meeting information that's going on. So if you need to provide it to someone else, if you click on this button, you'll get all of the general meeting information here that can be provided to anybody who has lost it, doesn't have it, can't find the link on our website, whatever it may be. So that's a very useful button. We mentioned before the timer, and here's where you'll see over the timer in the upper right hand corner, and that is going to tell you how long your meeting's been going on. And again, I find that something very useful. And let's talk about some of the other controls. This one is the full screen control, and during the initial session I talked some about why I prefer to leave my Zoom meeting in a non full screen mode, and that's related to the fact that it undocks my participant window. So what does that mean? Let me show you. If I click on the participants, you can see now it's put all of my participants over here on the right hand side of the screen, and so that I can see them docked here to the right. However, if I move it to full screen mode, you can see my participant dock went away, and if I choose it again, it now comes up as a floating window. Not that that's problematic, but I prefer to have it docked. So if I go back, I exit full screen mode, you can see it puts my participants back over here. For now, since we don't need them, I'm going to go ahead and hide that participant window. So let's talk about your audio and video controls. Obviously, you have your mute and unmute, your show and stop video. If I click this stop video, it's going to take me to the icon for my user. It'll use an initial if you haven't set one of these up. And then I can come back over here and start my video again, and you'll see it. Just because it's going to make the display smoother, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video for now. And that'll give us more bandwidth to look at the other things. Under your microphone, if you click on the arrow next to it, you get your options. You can choose which microphone you're using. And so that we don't conflict with the recording device, I'm using the internal microphone for Zoom, the internal speaker for Zoom. If you have a phone and need to switch to your phone audio, you can. Or if I'm using computer audio and want to close it all together, I can make this choice. This is going to give you a quick test window, and I'll run through that in a second for your microphone and speaker. So let's do that first. If I click here, it asks me if I hear the ringtone. I say yes.
Say yes.
You can hear that. I know it works. So I can hit yes there, finish. Everything's working correctly. Or if I want to change the actual settings, I can go to the audio settings, and this takes us to the same audio settings we reviewed in the first session of this, so I won't go over these specifically. On your video, you have options as well. Again, I can choose which camera. For the Zoom meeting, I'm using the internal one, and for my recording purposes, I'm using the other webcam. We can choose the virtual background. We've gone over this. It's exactly the same as what we went over initially, so I won't go over that. And again, I can choose video settings, and it'll pull up the video settings meeting window that we've, again, reviewed in the first session. So I'm going to skip over that. Security, you're not going to really need to do a lot of these things. You're always going to want to leave your waiting room enabled. And particularly here at Congregation Colomie, because we do not use passwords, we use the waiting room as our control to make sure we don't get anyone into the room we don't want. If it's a name you don't recognize, I'll show you later how you can chat with somebody in the waiting room and ask them to change their name so that you know who they are before admitting them. This also gives you what you allow your participants to do. Do you allow them to share screens? Can they chat? And can they rename themselves? I suggest you uncheck rename themselves. That we are dealing with kids, and sometimes they think it's fun to give themselves a silly name, and that only encourages the other kids. And so a lot of times it can get out of control, and they can be more interested in making each other laugh with their names than they are with listening to the teacher. So again, that's something that's easy to do. It's going to save you hassle. And if they come in with a silly name to begin with, when we get to that section, I'll show you how you can rename them to their real name. In most cases, you're going to want to leave chat open, but if for some reason it gets out of control, you can always just turn the chat off, and then the participants can no longer do that. If you lock the meeting, we'll talk more about the participants later after we add in. Here's the chat window. And this is where, if there are more people here, and we'll look at it again, you'll have a drop down, and you'll be able to say your chat to a specific person, to all the participants, or to people in the waiting room, or to a specific person in the waiting room. And we'll look at that again when we add the participants to the meeting and we discuss those features. If you want to set up a poll, you can come in here and add a poll question. Just click Edit, and it's going to let you set up your poll. I apologize for the slow internet right now. I've got too many things going on. And here's where you can put in your question, your answers. And then if you save that, you can then launch the poll. Or using this, I'm going to go back to the right window here. You can just, and then once you've added, I'm sorry, I explained this. Once you've added the question, you can then launch the poll. I'm not going to go through all the steps, but that's the basics of doing that. And you can poll for anything, and then you have the ability to show those poll results to the students if you want to use that. Recording, if you want to record each class, you can use this. It will record it, and then you can retrieve that recording later to do other things with it if you like, or just archive it off to have for the history of what's been going on in the class in case you need to replay a section later. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a little bit about working with people once participants start to join in. I've asked my kids to go ahead and join as separate participants so that they show up in the waiting room. We'll talk a little bit about what you can do there. You can see now I pulled up the participants window. It's docked over here. I wasn't able to capture it, but it'll also pop a message here that'll tell you when, down here by the participants button, that'll tell you when somebody's in the waiting room. When I see them here, you can do a couple of things. You can click on message, and you can send a message to everyone in the waiting room, or you can admit them all, or you can admit them individually. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and admit them both together. So once you hit admit all, it takes a second. You'll see their videos start to pop up, and down here there are their controls. You have some master controls, so you can mute all, and it mutes everybody. I can unmute all, and it'll unmute everybody. Notice when you hit mute all, one of the options here is to allow participants to unmute themselves. If I uncheck this and hit continue, then they can no longer unmute themselves, and I have full control. I can still unmute them, as you'll see here, but they can't unmute themselves. Same thing on video. I can come here, I can stop their video. I can make them a host. But if you make them a host, you're giving them full host capabilities. You then lose your ability as the host. I would not suggest that. However, one of the features that does work very nicely is the make them co-host. So for instance, for your Modric, if you both join early, you can make them a co-host and they can manage the waiting room for you, or they can manage muting and unmuting people, or any of these side skills so that you can concentrate on teaching your class and have your, for lack of a better term, technology partner taking care of anything related to muting, unmuting, hiding video, showing video, all of those things. You can rename the person, so you always as host have the control to rename that person. I can send them back to the waiting room, which I'm going to do with Ben right now. Notice I sent him back to the waiting room, and I can come back and I can readmit him. And now he's back with us again. These buttons allow them to speak with your users. So for instance, go faster. They're asking me to go faster, go slower, or I'm actually telling this to the other people, I should say. If they have their buttons, they'll give the same thing. I can say no, yes, all of those kinds of things. Here's my thumbs up, thumbs down. So ways that you can communicate, and I can clear them all that way. Down here under more, I have a few options. I can mute participants under upon entry, so that when they come in from the waiting room, they're automatically muted. This is where I can allow participants to mute or unmute themselves, and you can toggle back and forth. You can see right now I'm not allowing, as you saw earlier, for them to do that. You can set it up where it plays an enter, exit, and chime, which gives you a ding when people join. That's really helpful if you've already started your meeting. You can check this, and if somebody joins later, it'll ding you, and you know to go look in the room. Lock meeting, nobody else is going to be able to join. You're not going to be able to change your meetings, and it's going to stay that way. And enable waiting room, I would always leave that check. If you uncheck this, then suddenly if somebody comes in late and joins, they're going to be able to come straight into your meeting. That's where you run into issues with things like Zoom bombing and things of that nature. I think we have covered almost everything. The one thing I want to go back to here and point out, obviously remove from a meeting, removes them all together. Report allows you to report it to the administrator. In this case, it's going to be, it'll actually come to me, but that's something that we can capture and pass on to the proper people. Hopefully you never have to do that. And then, like I said, you can remove them, which is I'm not going to do, but would obviously remove them from the meeting altogether. The one thing that's interesting is spotlight video. I'm going to unmute these two, and then I'm going to spotlight Ben. I am currently in what they call, you can tell I'm in speaker view because it says gallery view up here. It will always, this is your choice to change views. So I'm currently in speaker view, but if I come here and I spotlight Ben, you'll see he now comes onto the to the main screen. And then you can go and I can spotlight Rachel, and her screen will come to the main. Her dark screen will come to the main. And then you can also, when someone is spotlighted, you can come and cancel the spotlight, and it will typically jump back to whoever's speaking at that point. And that's in speaker view. It's going to always show who's speaking in the main view. This is good if you have small classes, then the main speaker will always be here. Or if I hit gallery view, it's going to break them up into screen, and this is how you see everybody on the screen. In the cases of more than, I think it holds 16 people on a screen, it'll then pass on to a second screen, a third screen, and so on. Notice you still have all the controls here that you do over here. You spotlight video, rename. You can change your profile profile picture over here. If it's yourself, meaning me, you can hide that view so that you don't see your own camera in the gallery view. So let's go back to the speaker view. And then the last thing that we really haven't talked about, but I wanted to wait until we had everybody online, is the screen sharing. Just similar to everything else, next to the actual start, you have the arrow. This allows you to set the settings for screen sharing. One participant can share at a time, or multiple can. I suggest, again, you use one particularly for bandwidth, and in most cases, teachers are going to be the only ones that'll be sharing. But you can change it to where multiple people can share at a time, and it'll break it up just like it does the video windows. In your advanced sharing options, you have that choice. You also can choose where only you can, which is the default setting, or you can set it where all participants can share. And then if you allow that, then it will change. It will give you the options here as well. So if I change to all participants, now I can say who can start. All participants or only the host can start the share. Sharing is very simple. You click on share screen. You choose what you want to share. And then you can display that screen. You also have the special function of the whiteboard, which can be shared. And so say, for instance, you had a browser window up here. You could share that. I'm going to share my Finder window. I always suggest that you click on Optimize Screen for screen share and share computer sound, particularly because when you're sharing videos or things that have audio with them, if you forget to check share computer sound, they'll see your video, but they won't hear any of the audio. And so now in my Zoom, you can see that I'm sharing that. Notice that all of my controls now have popped up here. And they have things like annotate, which allows me to come down here and I can draw a straight line on here, or I can type text on here, or whatever I'd like to do. And so these are all your annotation controls, and then you can actually save that out if you want to, and save a screenshot of this screen if you'd like. This is my option. When I'm done, I can stop the computer sound or start it, and then here's your stop. I stop that share. I go back to the screen share, and when we met with Julia the other day, we talked about the whiteboard, but here's another example of what you can do. And when you share the whiteboard, you're actually going to get just a blank space, and then you can use all of these annotations that we were just talking about. A whiteboard is really just a share, but it's a special kind of screen share. So let's stop that. Let's look at our other advanced share options. I'll talk a little bit about them. I'm not going to demonstrate them all. But you can show your iPad or iPhone screen using AirPlay if you happen to have an Apple device, or via cable. These are options on the Mac. To be honest, I'm not sure if they'll show up on a Windows PC or not. You have other ways you can do. You can then say, I only want to show a portion of the screen, and then it will allow you to pick what portion you want to show. You can do sound only, and if you happen to have an external camera or a second camera pointing a different direction, you can show it from there. And then you can also go pick files from any of the cloud-based file sharing devices. All that being said, most likely you're going to be using a share like this, sharing your desktop. You're going to be doing a share like this, sharing a specific window, or the whiteboard, I think, are the most common cases. Again, in our Q&A, if you have specific detailed questions around that, we can get more into it, but these are really the basics of all those things. So I now have covered really all of the basic buttons, all of the basic functionalities. I know, again, this has been pretty fast. If you have questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Or, again, if your congregation calling me teachers, that's one of the advantages. I will put this on the website, and you can view the video, and then we have our Q&A session that's coming up quickly. You can ask me specific questions, and I'll be happy to go over any of those things in more detail. I hope all of this stuff has been informative. I hope that you now feel a little bit better about using Zoom and are less concerned about the technology issues that you can run into. But again, feel free to ask me any questions that come up. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch these.